guys were a family, weren't you?
You bet.
Really a family. Tell me about 53. Only Steers team make it to the final game.
Well,
tell me how in the world you end up playing in a mud hole.
Well, we started off with playing San Angelo, and started off we got beat at San Angelo by a couple of points, and boy, we were just devastated over that. Man, we thought we could beat that 4A team, you know. Well, we didn't. Then we started winning, and we kept on winning, and we had win. The conference then was called the Little Southwest Conference because of all the teams: Breckenridge, Sweetwater, Vernon, and La Mesa. All these teams are pretty good teams, and so anyhow, we started winning, and we ended up with a tie with Breckenridge, but we beat Breckenridge in Big Spring in a rainstorm. And of course, the field in the middle of this field was mud, but we were used to it. We were used to dirt. We weren't used to water because none of us had hardly ever seen it rain back in those days. But Breckenridge had an awful good team. They had some fantastic running backs, and they had a real good passer. I can't remember his name right off. Bennett Watts. No. Anyhow, they were a passing team basically. And we were a big, heavy running team. Our line probably averaged 220 pounds. I weighed 190, JC weighed 190, and so we were big running backs. Eventually, we finally ended up with a 6-0 score. I accidentally broke loose on about a 40-yard run in the third or fourth quarter, and that was the only score of the game.
Accidentally.
Well, anyhow, it was a 6-0 game, and so we beat Breckenridge. No one thought that was possible that Big Spring could beat Breckenridge because they had guys like Jerry Tubbs and great athletes.
Oh man, Jerry Tubbs.
And so we got pretty excited about that. Then as the season went on, we got to Sweetwater, and they beat us. So Breckenridge had lost one game, we'd lost one game, so we had a tie for district. So that meant since we beat Breckenridge, we got going to the playoffs. Then we went and played Brownwood, and they had a kid named Ray Masters I played with him at SMU. He was running back. And Ray and Brownwood ran off a single wing. We ran off a split T, belly series. And we had a kid named Buddy Cosby, who was about the same size as I. He and I were juniors together. Texas Tech was after him when he was a sophomore to go to Tech, how good he was on defense. Well, we knew where that ball was. We tore Brownwood 50-something, I think, 50-something to 14. We had a hard, and old Ray, we put him out of the game 2 or 3 times. And I played with Ray at SMU, and he's a tough guy. I mean, we hurt him. Then we won that game, and we went to the next game and won that. Then we ended up to play Port Neches down in Beaumont area.
Tell me how that went down that you played in Port Neches instead of a neutral.
Well, our coaches wanted a neutral site. Coleman and the Big Spring administration wanted. Well, Port Neches said nope. So we're either going to play in the mud of Port Neches or the sand hills of Big Spring. And so we lost the toss. So we had to load up, go all the way down to Beaumont, Port Neches, play that game. And it was raining the whole time we were there. Yeah. And we had these old net uniforms, and the more water you got on them, the heavier they got. And then Port Neches played in the rain all the time. They had these slick uniforms, and so that's how we ended up in Port Neches. They wouldn't agree to a neutral site. That's basically it. And we lost the toss.
Tell me what happened to you in the game.
Well, first right out of the box, I was running around in first quarter. And back in those days, we didn't have masks on the helmets. And I turned to go up there, and I remember that, and a guy named Gordon LeBluff, who played at A&M, he hit me, his helmet, into my face. And it's a legal tackle. I mean, you could hit anybody anywhere you want to back in those days. Anyhow, I remember seeing him coming, and I started ducking. He caught me helmet, and it pretty well knocked me out. It split my lip all the way through. And coaches had to come out and kind of carry me off because I was pretty well knocked out. And in fact, about the only thing I remember about that state final game was that first quarter. I don't think I ever got back in the rest of the game because I don't remember it. I stood on the sidelines in the rain, but I don't remember any. And Billy Martin took my place. No, yeah, I think Martin did. Running back, and we played a pretty close game, but they beat us. They beat us in the mud. Jack, that's what happened. Just like I said, then after the game, we were staying in Beaumont at this hotel, and Dr. Williamson from Big Spring came by the room and sewed me up, sewed my lip back together.
You told me you were laying on a couch.
Yeah, laying on a couch, and they called the hotel doctor to come out and take a look at me, but he was drunk. He staggered in, and Coach Coleman said he's not going to work on this kid. And they said, are there any Big Spring doctors here? And Mike said, yeah, Dr. Williamson's here. So they went and found him. He was staying at the hotel, I think. But they found him, and he came in and stitched me up.
And you told me your last year in '54, you guys had a really good team in the fall of '54 also.
Actually, we had a better overall record in '54 than we did in '53. We won more games, and we just lost one game in '54. But we ended that with a tie with Breckenridge. So we had to go to Breckenridge to play them this year in '54, and they beat us there in Breckenridge. Then we beat Sweetwater in Big Spring, but Sweetwater beat Breckenridge. So we ended up with another tie. But the Breckenridge got to go on to the state finals because they beat us. So we tied them. That's why we called it co-champs, '53 and '54.
What do you think would have happened? I mean, I know, unless you played the game, you don't know. What do you think would have happened if Big Spring had played Port Neches on a reasonably dry field that wasn't mud hole?
Boy, it'd be speculation, but we had a running team. Jack, we were big and heavy, and we ran the ball. We didn't. Frank Long passed a little bit, but not much. J.C. carried that ball, and I carried it, and Brick Johnson. We had a backfield average close to 190 pounds. Back in high school, that's pretty good.
It was big then.
And we had guys like Tiny Ellison on line, and Norman Dudley, and those guys, they were big men. I think we would have done a lot better. And who knows how it would have come out. But we sure would have been a lot fairer competition.
I think you'd have won.
Well, we thought we were the best. We got down in that swamp country, and the mud mudded down. And like I said, I didn't contribute hardly anything to that game because
got knocked out.
Yeah.
And so if you'd even been able to play the game,
I really didn't. I think I didn't carry the ball over one or two times. Best I recall. Yeah. Now there might be some film available on it. I don't know if there's any film still available. But it might show more, but that's all I remember. Yeah. And I can remember a whole lot about some of those football games. But
tell me about your after high school. How you end up in a college. You're playing in college, right?
Yeah, back in those days, about the only thing we knew was in the Big Spring Herald or the KBST. We didn't have TV, any of those kind of communication that we have today. Didn't know what was going on in the world except what we read at high school and in the library when they give us those. So my exposure to what was going on in the world was real limited. I knew about the Southwest Conference because Karen Tibbs always called those games. You listened to them on the radio. I knew about SMU, Doak Walker, because I'd read the Doak Walker story about his career, 3-time All-American at SMU. And I knew about him and Kyle Rote and some of those kids. But all the other schools, they were foreign to me, like Notre Dame, Georgia Tech. You'd heard those names, but Oklahoma, I knew Oklahoma because some kids from Kermit, Texas played for Bud Wilkinson at Oklahoma. And I knew some of those kids that played there. So really, my exposure got when I started getting all these letters from these coaches that wanted me to come play ball for them.
What schools?
I had 40-something different offers.
Wow. And
even I had, they wanted me to go to West Point, and I had an opportunity to go to West Point or to the Naval Academy. But I was wanting to get married. I was in love with my Judy Douglas, and you couldn't go there married. A&M, you couldn't go there married. But SMU said, "You come on, baby. We'll take you." How'd
you do at SMU?
Pretty good. I was, back in those days, I was the first kid to go to SMU on a scholarship. But freshmen couldn't play varsity ball in those days.
I remember, yeah.
Could not play. So anyhow, I was running fullback, and we had to go both ways. You couldn't. In those free substitutes, you had to play full. You had to play offense, defense. If you came out of the game during the quarter, you couldn't go back in. So you had to go both ways. And I was running fullback. But I had a little problem on defense on the secondary in the Southwest Conference, keeping up with some of those fast ends. And we had Ray Masters there as a fullback too, who I played against. So the coach said, "How you feel about playing in?" I said, "Coach, that sounds good to me, just as long as I can play." So they moved me to a wide receiver in, and Don Meredith was developing about that time, so we were throwing the ball all the time. So got to catch Meredith's passes. And we ran off a spread formation, mostly on offense.
I have to stop you there. Tell me about Meredith. You know, we have this picture on TV of this really great-hearted, funny guy. What was Don Meredith like?
He was like that. In fact, sometimes he'd sing to us in the huddle.
Like what would he sing?
"She'll be coming around the mountain when she comes. She'll be coming around." That's the SMU fight song. He'd sing that, and Don was a A-OK, great guy, friendly. And he was the leader, absolute leader. And we always kid him a little bit because he's from Mount Vernon, I think Mount Vernon, a big old town of Mount Vernon, you know. And but he was a hell of an athlete. In fact, he holds a record for the Cotton Bowl basketball classic. At one time, he scored 65 points in one basketball game. So he was a good basketball player. He was football. But
Tell me about some of the famous guys, or famous now, or were famous then in college and maybe even in pros. Tell me about some of the famous guys you played against.
Well, one of the most famous was John David Crow at A&M, and he was a tough running back. He won the Heisman. I think the only Heisman award that A&M's ever got. He got that one. And
did you ever tackle him?
Huh? Oh yeah.
Hard to tackle?
He was hard to pull down. He hurt you. But fortunately, the time one time I got him by myself, I hit him from the side as you come through the line. I can't tell this story.
Go ahead, tell me about it. I'll censor what.
Well, John David I think it had polio. He had a half his face was paralyzed.
Bell's palsy or something.
Yeah, half his face was paralyzed. So we had all that black on our face. And after getting up off Crow, I pushed myself up and I looked at his face. And I didn't say anything, but I thought, "John David, you sure are ugly." I didn't say anything, but I thought, "Man, you're ugly." But boy, he was a hell of a football player. But
did guys talk trash to each other back
no.
then like they do now?
The only ones I ever talked trash was University of California. And they had some black athletes on there that really did. I mean, they didn't shut their mouth up. But the rest of the time, no, everybody lined up and just went at it. One of the toughest teams I ever played against as far as hitting each other was Notre Dame. They had some big old Irishmen or somebody. They were 230, 240 pounds. I was big back in those days. I was about 200. And I was trying to run past some of those boys. They talked a little trash to you. They like they were going to kind of threaten you a little bit, but they were good.
You know, I didn't play organized football, and so I really can't, but I can just give you a perspective from watching guys back then to now. Do you get aggravated by all the showboating that goes on nowadays when somebody makes a touchdown, and when you hear through the microphones guys using the F word against each other and stuff? Does that bug you at all?
Yeah, it does. Because what we did, and we thought we were just playing the game. We weren't an individual sport. We were a team. And so we didn't stand up and holler about what I just did, because you're doing what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to tackle, you're supposed to run, and if you made a good score, I had a habit to when I scored, I kind of say a little prayer. Say, "Thank you, God," something like that. But all that showboat, it irritates me. I mean, it turns me off really. I just it's the type of athlete we have now and the money they're making, I guess they need to call attention to themselves. But no, we didn't have that. We didn't have that.
Frosty,
It was a team.
Did you get you told me you did, so I'll ask you, how about pro ball?
Yeah, I had a couple offers from L.A. Rams and Detroit Lions, and
What, maybe a $5 million bonus?
oh no, they signing bonus in was about $12,000. You were good to get $12,000 a year because you were expected to work after the football season. You had to sell insurance or sell cars or something. And
are you talking about a bonus or how much you made a year?
That was your pay for the whole year.
If you were really good, you got $12,000 a year.
Yeah, and you got a bonus. No one ever offered me a bonus. Anyhow, I was married with the Judy Douglas then, and we had Doug, my oldest son. He was 2 years old. We was born when I was a sophomore. And we were broke, been in school for 4 years. Judy worked as a secretary for Tracy Locke Advertising in Dallas. And we needed a job. And Costin Oil and Chemical offered me one in Big Spring, Texas at the refinery. And I said, we're gone. And I've just started interviewing different companies all over. And I told Judy about how you feel about moving back to Big Spring. Of course, her parents lived here. My parents lived in Odessa. We're back to Big Spring because we're Big Spring folks. And so that's how that happened. And Doug, we needed a job real bad. And plus, I'd not got knocked out about 3 or 4 times at SMU, and so it seemed like I was getting more knocked out more often and I really was tired of it.
Probably a good move.
Yeah, I enjoyed the sport, but I was ready for something new.
You still come back. You're 80 years old now. You still come back for homecoming. You live where now?
We live in a little town called Rockwood, Texas, which is halfway between Brady and Santa Ana on the Colorado River. With the closest quarter milk, I like to tell people, is 20 miles away.
But you still drive back.
Oh yeah.
You come to homecoming at Big Spring. Tell me what you feel when you come back and why you do that.
Well, this is my home. And once you get away from what we experienced as a team and as an education here at Big Spring High School and the people, I think you make a connection. And I still got some good friends here. Some of them not with us anymore, dadgummit. But it's still home to me. It's the only home I've ever known, really.
What do you?
And then it was like when I got out of school, came back and lived here from 59 through 75 to Phoenix, moved me back to Dallas. So I was in the YMCA, the Lions Club, the Boy Scouts. I was gone 4 nights a week doing that kind of stuff. Judy.
People here still know you too.
Yeah.
They?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Does that surprise you? That many years
When I checked out over at the Spanish Inn a while ago, the lady behind the cash register, she said, "Frosty, hi." She graduated in '54, and that's it. She's still working.
That tells you haven't changed a bit. They still recognize you.
Well, I'm not going to pull my cap off.
I'll play. See if I play this game with myself occasionally. You never value things you have as much as you should until you don't have them anymore.
That's true.
I always say that. And I always fantasize about what I would do if I could do something one more day. I'll give you an example for me. I think about, I wish I could sit in the den at our house with my parents and my brother and watch Have Gun Will Travel and Gunsmoke and all that stuff one more time. I started my career at Channel 4. I wish I could go back and work one more day at Channel 4 with Bruce Fraser and all those guys like that. What do you wish you could do one more? Would you like to suit up one more day out here?
Well, that was awful fun. I loved it. It was a fun sport, but I enjoyed baseball too. I loved baseball. We didn't win all that many games. I was a pitcher, and I loved. In fact, sometimes I reflect back and say, "Man, I like baseball better than football, really." But that wasn't the opportunity. I don't know. That's a damn good question, Jack. I have to think about it. I would love to see my folks.
One more time. They must have been You told me your mom saved stuff. I bet you didn't even know how much she saved.
I didn't.
Did you?
I didn't. She put it all together, and then she gave it to me one day. I said, "Here." I said, "What's this?" I said, "This is something I put together for you." My dad was a driller and tool pusher. Worked 7 days a week.
Hard-working man.
He used to take me to the rigs with him when I was 10 years old, so I could be with him out on a drilling rig at 10 years. Can you imagine a 10-year-old walking around on a drilling rig now? Loved him, good man, and I just had great parents, you know, and good friend, Jimmy Parks, Lefty Reynolds, good Kirby Brown, good buddies.
Doesn't it feel good to
Oh,
know,
yeah.
just like your parents, to know how much they, by looking at what they saved, how much they cared about what you
Yeah.
were doing?
And I never developed that kind of relationship with the guys at SMU, because once we all graduated, we just got like a covey of quail, you know. And but those high school days are important. I think they kind of frame your personality and your relationships with people. 'Cause we had an awful good time, and we were good. We didn't tear up anything. We didn't drink. We didn't do bad stuff, you know. But we just had fun.
If you could go back, what would you do different?
Mm.
Your years at Big Spring, or is it pretty much the way you wanted it to be?
I've been pretty damn lucky, Jack. I've been pretty fortunate, health-wise and everything. I've been pretty fortunate guy. What would I do different? I would probably tell my mother I love her.
Or do it more often, anyhow, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You miss them.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of hard to, you may have a comment on this, it's kind of hard to explain. Sometimes people, I'll tell them I'm from Big Spring, and they're just kind of like, yeah, that flat stuff out there, desert, whatever. They just don't know what it's like out there, do they?
Well, being the way you are, you're in Dallas, they sure don't know. You know what I mean? Most of those people in Dallas came from New York. And, but that's a bunch of folks that I hung out with, all came from this area. And we hung together too, you know.
Okay.
But I was born in Colorado City, and my mother, she was raised in Colorado City. She was a Whitaker. Shoemakers, and that's where my cousins were.
Yeah.
And we had some good times. They lived on a farm outside of Colorado. They lost their dad in a car wreck. There was 4 of them, mom's sister's kids, and they lived on a farm outside of Colorado City, and I used to go down and spend the summers with them. I got an education from those farm boys. They taught me some stuff I hadn't even thought about, you know.
Yeah.
And so I was real close to those cousins, and that was just something I really enjoyed too, Jack.
I got to tell you one thing. Let's take this clip off of here for a second. Got to tell you one thing, Frosty. It's like you were like, to me, I was like 3 or 4 when I first saw you. You're like a hero to me, and it's a big deal to meet you. Thanks for talking with me today.
Thank you.
I have to get your autograph.
I tear up early anymore.
Do you get emotional when
Oh,
you
yeah.
hear that? When you hear the
Oh yeah, I get.
when you sing
I
the
even
school
think
song?
I even think about those days, and I get emotional. You know, because that's part of your life, and it's good to remember even though I have a great life now, I know it's getting. You know, we're getting to the kind of tailgate of it, and but had an awful good time. I was a very fortunate person.
Man, I
Very fortunate.
appreciate you talking.
You bet you.
Let me get you unhooked here.
It's been a pleasure.
Oh man, it's a pleasure talking to you.
I hope I didn't screw it up too
You
bad.
didn't screw nothing up. You were fabulous, man. If I worked for ESPN, you'd be leading the next newscast.